Ephesians chapter 5, verse 21 through verse 24. We began a new series on last week entitled 7 Rules on How to Approach a Christian. 7 rules on how to approach a Christian. You can't be walking up on saved folk all kind of way. Now, this is directed primarily to all of our singles, those in the building and those who are at home. But as we shared on last week, married folks will find themselves in here too. Just before we read Ephesians chapter 5, I want to read Galatians chapter 5, verse 22 and verse 23. It is one of my most favorite passages in the entire Bible, especially as it relates to relationships. Galatians chapter 5, verse 22 and verse 23. These two verses describe the fruit of the Spirit. I want to read them from the King James Version. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. I want you to keep that in mind. I'll make reference to it in just a moment. Ephesians chapter 5, beginning in verse 21, I want to read down to verse 24, and I would that you would read along with us, our kind-hearted staff. They have the words on the screen. Ephesians 5, verse 21 through verse 24. Let's read together. Out of respect for Christ, be courteously reverent to one another. Wives, understand and support your husband in ways that show your support for Christ. The husband provides leadership to his wife the way Christ does to his church, not by domineering, but by cherishing. So just as the church submits to Christ as he exercises such leadership, wives should likewise submit to their husbands. 7 rules on how to approach a Christian. Where are all my single folks? Single folks, raise your hand nice and high, regardless of your age. Single folks. Some of y'all single and scared, but that's because your hand went up. Some of y'all single and tired. Your hand got right here and you couldn't. Somebody said, Pastor, I'm tired of being single. That's where the issue was. I couldn't get it up. All my single folks at home and in the building, I want you to repeat after me. If I have. The single folks are scared. All right. So everybody repeat after me, single and married. The married folks are going to help the single folks out. And maybe you saying it on behalf of your children, your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews. Let's say it together. If I have the fruit of the Spirit, I am dating material. Let's try it one more time. If I have the fruit of the Spirit, I am dating material. If I'm not dating material, I am not marriage material. Amen. You may be seated in the Lord's presence. If I have the fruit of the Spirit, I am dating material. If I am not dating material, I am not marriage material. Stop hanging out with these people you ain't got no future with. That's a ton of bad grammar right there. I could have said it a whole lot better. Stop hanging out with those people that you don't have a future with. But I want to say it like I feel it. Quit hanging out with them people you ain't got no future with. I ain't put no H on the end of that thing. We saw on last week that there are some dangers when it comes to Christian dating. Dangers when it comes to Christian dating. The first danger is some Christians are in a hurry. And you've got to be careful about attaching yourself to someone else who is trying to move at a faster pace than the pace that you are moving at. Some Christians are in a hurry. And the reason you got to be careful about dealing with them is because you do not want to disappoint them. You do not want to disappoint them. So danger number one, some Christians are in a hurry. Danger number two, some Christians have been hurt. Some Christians have been hurt. And you got to be careful about connecting with other people who have been hurt. Some people don't have PTSD, that's post-traumatic stress syndrome. Some people have post-traumatic people syndrome. They've been hurt by people, and they are working to move beyond and to move past that hurt. And the reason you got to be careful when you date or connect yourself with them is the fact that you don't want to add to that hurt. They've already been hurt by other people. Don't you come along with your half crazy self and hurt people all over again. So those are the dangers of Christian dating. But then we started in the second phase, the do's and don'ts of Christian dating. The do's and don'ts of Christian dating. Now, I shared with you on last week that God and I had a conversation about how I was going to present this. Was I going to present it from the male perspective or from a female's perspective? And the Lord gave me permission. He said, Thorpe, present it from the female perspective and then let the men catch up, because that's what men are good at sometimes, is catching up. Sometimes we're slow. Sometimes we're slow. Sometimes it takes us a minute to see things. Sometimes the women in our lives will tell us something that we can't see. Then 6 months later, it turns out to be just how she told you it was. Okay, see what kind of room we got in here? Oh. I say it again, because I don't scare easily. Men, sometimes the women in your life will tell you something. You can't see it right then because you're so close to it. But 6 months later, and watch this, then you've got the unmitigated gall to not even go back to him and say, you know what? Baby, you were right. You were right. You were right. Baby, you know how to spot a snake, baby. You were right. It was a snake. I know I thought it was a giraffe, honey, but it turned out to be a snake. The do's and don'ts of Christian dating, I want to present it from the female's perspective, and then our men will be able to catch up. We saw three things on last week, and then I mentioned a fourth as I shared them all with you. Here's the first thing we saw last week. Every godly Christian woman who has the fruit of the Spirit, which means she's dating material, and the fact that she is dating material means that she is also marriage material. Why? She's got the fruit of the Spirit. That means she has reached a level of spiritual maturity. She's not looking to be played with. She is looking to be treated seriously. And her first admonition to you is, don't come for me empty-handed. Don't come for me empty-handed. And the question that produces for every single man who's thinking about dating a Christian woman, a real Christian woman, you ought to ask yourself, can I afford a real Christian woman? Or am I stingy? And I shared with you last week, there's nothing wrong with being stingy by yourself. Just don't go get a whole nother person and cause them to have to deal with the consequences of your stinginess. Well, he's just frugal with his money. He cheap. Stingy. Stingy. Don't come for me empty-handed. We saw that last week. And I also shared this with you. Empty-handed doesn't mean that your pockets have to be full. What it does mean is that if you got $1, your lady ought to have 50 cents out of it. Don't be stingy. She's sitting in the corner eating peanuts and you carving off a 22-ounce tomahawk steak. I mean, she said she was on a diet. I'm trying to help her. Don't come for me empty-handed. Second thing we saw, don't come for me empty-headed. Don't come for me empty-headed. That means the question we ask in response to being empty-handed is, can you afford a real Christian woman? When it comes to being empty-headed, the question is, can you intrigue a real Christian woman? You know what that means? You got to have more than jive talk. Let me say it another way. You got to have more than sweet talk. Because some folks, if they ain't trying to jive talk you, they trying to sweet talk you. Your talk ought to be intriguing talk. When she sits down to have a conversation with you, 30 seconds into the conversation, her personality says, tell me more. Tell me more. You can watch people's body language. Two people sitting down having dinner at a restaurant. If one of them lean back like this, one or two things is the problem. Either the conversation is not engaging or the halitosis is. His eyes burning, his eyebrows uncurl. He'd be like, baby, can you write that down? Don't put me out. Don't put me out. Let me stay at least another 23 years. Don't come for me empty-headed. We saw that last week. Hey, here's the third thing we saw last week. This one is very important and paramount in this age. Don't come for me empty-hearted. Don't come for me empty-hearted. And the question there is, can you appreciate a real Christian woman? Because when you appreciate your woman, you don't put your hands on her in anger. You don't raise your voice at her in anger or in disgust. One of the aspects of spiritual fruit is meekness. Meekness means I have quiet strength under control. Meekness says I may be bigger than you. I may be stronger than you. I may be able to out-talk you. My credit score may be higher than yours. I may be in a better financial position than the one that you are in, but I will never use what is in me against you. Watch somebody who's always telling you, don't nobody want you but me. You ought to know better than that yourself. So watch people who have empty hearts and they are not compassionate. This is a person who will be abusive and you do not want to be connected to them. Here's Ephesians chapter 5, verse 28. And that is how husbands ought to love their wives. They're really doing themselves a favor since they're already one in marriage. Verse 29, no one abuses his own body, does he? No, he feeds and pampers it. That's how Christ treats us, the church, since we are part of his body. And if you can't treat her like Christ would treat her, leave her alone. Get you a goldfish, because all it's going to do is swim in the water. And if you holler at the goldfish, the goldfish should be fine. But you ain't got no business hollering at people. And you can't holler at me, because I have some issues. And I'm holler proof. Holler proof. So, number 3, don't come for me empty-hearted. Can you appreciate a real Christian woman? Here's number 4. Don't come for me heated. A real Christian woman who has the fruit of the Spirit. That means she is spiritually mature and serious about her walk with Christ. Don't come to her and your hormones have the urge to merge. Don't come for her heated. Here's the question. Can you keep your hands to yourself? Don't come for a real Christian woman heated. I have a ministry partner here in the state of Florida. She was recently married. Her husband is a former NFL player. And when they met, she said to him, she said, I am saving myself until marriage. And if you and I fall and we are intimate before marriage, she said, it will be proof that you are not the man I am going to marry. What she was saying to him was, don't come for me all hot and bothered. Get all that under control by yourself so that when you come for the real Christian, the mature Christian, because one of the aspects of spiritual maturity we saw in Galatians 5 in verse 23 is temperance. That means self-control. Temperance says, I control my thinking, I control my emotions, and I control my actions. Self-control doesn't start with the hands, it starts in the head. And if you can ever get this head right, you'll get these emotions right, and you'll be able to keep your hands to yourself. What's in your head, bro? What do you have swirling around in your head? If you're hollering at people at every gas station, and young ladies, stop letting it go to your head when he holler at you at Wawa because he just left the kangaroo. He been hollering at shorties all day. Girl, he asked me for my phone number. He wanted my Instagram. He wanted to follow me. Have mercy, Jesus. Watch verse 4. Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 4. Paul says, though some tongues just love the taste of gossip, Christians have better uses for language than that. Don't talk dirty or silly. That kind of talk doesn't fit our lifestyle. Thanksgiving is our dialect. You can be sure that using people or religion or things just for what you can get out of them, the usual variations of idolatry, will get you nowhere, and certainly nowhere near the kingdom of Christ, the kingdom of God. Don't let yourselves get taken in by religious smooth talk. God gets furious with people who are full of religious sales talk but want nothing to do with him. Don't even hang around people like that. You grope your way through that murk once. That means when the Lord done delivered you from something, don't go back to what he delivered you from. You grope your way through that murk once, but no longer. You're out in the open now. The bright light of Christ makes your way plain. So no more stumbling around. Get on with it. The good, the right, the true, these are the actions appropriate for daylight hours. Figure out what will please Christ and then do it. Don't waste your time on useless work, mere busy work, the barren pursuits of darkness. Expose these things for the sham they are. It's a scandal when people waste their lives on things they must do in the darkness where no one will see. Rip the cover off those frauds and see how attractive they look in the light of Christ. Wake up from your sleep. Climb out of your coffins. Christ will show you the light. So watch your step. Use your head. Make the most of every chance you get. These are desperate times. Don't live carelessly, unthinkingly. Make sure you understand what the master wants. Don't drink too much wine. That cheapens your life. Drink the Spirit of God, huge draughts of Him. Sing hymns instead of drinking songs. Sing songs from your heart to Christ. Sing praises over everything. Any excuse for a song to God the Father in the name of our Master Jesus Christ. Drop down to verse 28. Verse 28 says, and that is how husbands ought to love their wives. They're really doing themselves a favor since they're already one in marriage. How many people can you be one with? And when you give yourself to your husband or to your wife, you want to be able to be one with them, one body, one soul. That means don't bring 12 other souls. They got a new question they say people ask each other on dates. I don't know who this is for. If you don't get this, it ain't for you to get. But question people ask each other now on dates is, what is your body count? What's your body count? And if he take out his phone and go to the calculator, check please. It's all kind of souls and all kind of other stuff running around in there. If he got carry the one. Wait a minute. I almost forgot 1985. Hold on, let me go back and catch up. And that's why you glowing in the dark. All them souls. So for the real Christian woman says, don't come for me heated. We saw in verse 4 through verse 20, don't come for me for what you think you can get out of me, what you think you can get from me. I'm looking for somebody who's going to be an asset, not a liability. Because if you don't care no more about yourself, you certainly won't be able to care for me. Don't come for me heated. All right, here's number 5. Don't come for me unhealed. Don't come for me unhealed. Which means get yourself together first. Get yourself straight. Get yourself straight. Get yourself whole. Let me put it in the form of a question, then I'll read the verses. Here's how you know whether or not you are healed. Can you tell the difference between your history and your assignment? Can you tell the difference between your history and your assignment? Because if you take me on, I'm going to be your assignment. But if you're so caught up in your history until it interferes with your assignment, it is proof positive that you have gotten into something that you weren't quite ready for. You say, Pastor, that's in the text. It is. Watch verse 31. And this is why a man leaves. Some of us need to stop right there. This is why a man leaves. Do you recognize that when you come to Christ, you have to repent and leave some old stuff behind? My dear friend, Dr. Cedric Veal says, if you take all the stuff from your old house into your new house, before long, your new house will start looking and smelling just like your old house. What's in your past, that's your history. What's in your present, that is your assignment. Can you tell the difference? Verse 31, and this is why a man leaves father and mother and cherishes his wife. No longer two, they become one flesh. You read this verse in the King James Version, it says a man leaves his mother and his father and he cleaves to his wife. You don't have in-law trouble, you have maturity trouble. Because if you're grown enough, you know how to keep in-laws in their place so that your in-laws don't become outlaws. Because grown people ought to be able to run their own house. And sometimes you got to learn how to keep people out your business. Stop talking people down because y'all going to be back together. Now everybody looking at them cross-eyed at the picnic because stuff you done told them. Here he come. You know he can't keep a job. That's what Shay told us. He can't keep a job. You know them ain't even his shoes. He wearing his son's shoes. And now y'all kikiing and Kiki. How you doing, Ray? We so glad you're back around us, Ray. Not all that stuff y'all been saying about me. So there's got to be some leaving and some cleaving. And you need to know whether or not he's healed when he comes for you. Is someone else still occupying space in his heart? Or is he healed? Is he still holding on to something else? Or does he recognize that and them and they are in his past, but this is his assignment? And if he's not ready, that's fine. Get the goldfish. Because you can have the goldfish and Maria. But when you come for the real Christian, you got to leave Maria wherever she is, because Maria is your past and Mary Sue is your assignment. And you got to learn the difference. So don't come for me unhealed. Watch verse 32. This is a huge mystery, and I don't pretend to understand it all. What is clearest to me is the way Christ treats the church. And this provides a good picture of how each husband is to treat his wife, loving himself in loving her, and how each wife is to honor her husband. Now, nowhere in this text does it talk about having more than one wife or more than one husband. And you have to understand the difference between your past and your assignment, your history and your assignment. All right, here's number 6. Number 5 was don't come for me unhealed. Here's number 6. Don't come for me unhealthy. Don't come for me unhealthy. Let me give you another word for unhealthy. Unhappy. Don't come for me unhappy. Don't nobody want to be around you. If you ain't even happy with yourself. One of the aspects we saw of the fruit of the Spirit is joy. The word joy is taken from the Greek word chara, which is spelled C-H-A-R-A. Here's the long definition. Joy means an inward sense of spiritual well-being that cannot be touched by outward circumstances. Joy is different from happiness because happiness is based on what's happening. But joy is like the pilot light in your gas stove. There may not be anything cooking on the surface top, but if you get down into the guts of the matter, the pilot light is always burning. And those are the kinds of people you want to connect with. People who have had their share of ups and downs with God, and they are convinced that there is no valley so low that God can't bring you out of it. And their testimony is this joy that I have. The world didn't give it to me, and the world can't take it away. You know what the opposite of a joyful person is? A moody person. You don't know what version of them you're going to get when you talk to them. Because they can be one way at 8 o'clock in the morning, but around 9:15, they're a whole different person. Some of them walk in your job on Monday, everything is fine. Tuesday come, it's a whole different version of them. Does that mean that we have to be singing and dancing all the time? No, but you ought to have some joy. You ought to have an inward sense of spiritual well-being that cannot be touched by outward circumstances. You got to have that thing down on the inside, in your shanana, in your sanctified soul. Joy. Are you happy? Here's a question that comes along with that. Do you like you? Because it's going to be hard to get somebody else to like you. And you don't even like yourself. So don't come for me, the real Christian woman says. Don't come for me unhealthy, which means unhappy. Watch verse 21. Verse 21 says, out of respect for Christ, be courteously reverent to one another. What I want you to do, beginning in verse 21, is to watch the verbs, especially by the time we get to verse 25. Watch the verbs. Here's verse 21. Out of respect for Christ, be courteously reverent to one another. Can you do that? Can you be courteous and respectful to other people? Let me get ahead of myself. Here's what I'm getting at. If you can't do these things for yourself, you won't be able to do them for another person. If you're not kind and courteous to you, you're going to have a hard time being kind and courteous to other people. When was the last time you did something nice for yourself? Verse 22, wives, here comes some verbs. Understand and support. Can you do that? Understand and support your husbands in ways that show your support for Christ. Here's verse 23. Watch the verbs. The husband provides leadership. Can you do that? He provides leadership to his wife the way Christ does to his church, not by domineering, but by cherishing. Can you do that? Are you equipped to handle this? I used to love going to theme parks, especially the older I got. When I was younger, Deacon Charlie, the thing that frustrated me about theme parks like Disney World is I was a kid, and in order to ride something like Space Mountain, you had to be a certain height. And if you weren't a certain height, you couldn't ride the ride because you weren't big enough or tall enough. And they put up a sign that said, you got to be this tall to ride this ride. Sisters, you need a sign. It ought to be the look on your face that you got to be this tall. In other words, don't come for me if you're not healthy enough to handle the responsibilities that come along with being around somebody like me. Because I'm not cheap. There are no coupons. I don't give discounts. And who am I talking to in here? The reason you keep ending up with bargain people is you keep selling yourself short. And don't get mad at people when they treat you cheap. Because cheap is what you advertise. So verse 23, the husband provides leadership to his wife the way Christ does to his church, not by domineering, but by cherishing. Verse 24, so just as the church submits to Christ and he exercises such leadership, wives should likewise submit to their husbands. Here's another verb, verse 25. Husbands, go all out in your love for your wives, exactly as Christ did for the church, a love marked by giving, not getting. Don't come for me unhealthy. That means you ought to be a happy, joyful person. You ought to like yourself so that you will be qualified to like somebody else. All right, here's rule number 1. Don't come for me empty-handed. Rule number 2, don't come for me empty-headed. Rule number 3, don't come for me empty-hearted. Rule number 4, don't come for me heated. Rule number 5, don't come for me unhealed. Rule number 6, don't come for me unhealthy. Here's the last one. Don't come for me unholy. See in verse 32 and verse 33. Verse 32 says, this is a huge mystery, and I don't pretend to understand it all. What is clearest to me is the way Christ treats the church. And this also provides a good picture of how each husband is to treat his wife, loving himself in loving her, and how each wife is to honor her husband. You know what this means? She can't love him right if she doesn't love God right first. He can't love her right if he doesn't love God first. See, Pastor, you judging. I ought to be able to marry anybody that I want to marry. And then pray to the... Isn't that funny? You want to go get anything you want to get. But then you want to fall out on the altar begging God to fix what you done dug up. And the Lord is saying, now is not just the time to pray. You should have prayed in the selection process. You can't go to the Ford dealership with a trunk full of Mercedes parts and tell the service manager at Ford, here, make this work. And people of God who have grown up in him enough to walk in the fruit of the Spirit, how can someone who's walking in the light connect with somebody who's walking in darkness? And then you get mad when dark folks act like they're in the dark. That's where you found them at. In the dark. And unfortunately, we are dealing with a cultural conscience of family breakdowns and children struggling with the emotional, psychological, and sometimes even financial difficulty of wondering how the pieces are going to be put together because you wouldn't act right. Always in such a hurry, always so hurt, didn't recognize the dangers of being connected with another person. All right, let me say this and I'm done. Everything that I have said from the female perspective also applies to the male perspective. Because the real Christian man is also saying, if the real Christian woman is saying, don't come for me empty-handed, the real Christian man is saying, don't come for me empty-handed. Don't come for me stingy. I get you a fur coat for your birthday, and you bring me a fuzzy dice keychain for mine. We go to a 5-star restaurant for your birthday, and we swing through the drive-through at Chick-fil-A for mine. I teach couples in counseling. I teach them that you ought to set a budget for what you're going to do for special days. Set a budget. How much are we going to spend on each other for Christmas? How much are we going to spend on each other for birthdays, Valentine's Day? We need to establish some stuff. Because you're not going to be coming to me talking about it's the thought that counts. It wasn't the thought that counted when it was your birthday month. Now all of a sudden it's just a thought? For real? I ain't never went to the bank and deposited a thought. I think I want to deposit $1,000. But sir, where is it? So the brothers are saying, don't come for me empty-handed. The brothers are saying, don't come for me empty-headed. Don't come for me empty-hearted. Don't come for me heated. Don't come for me unhealed. Don't come for me unhealthy. Don't come for me unholy. Why? It has taken me some time to cultivate this walk with Christ. I had to go through some stuff to learn what I know. I had to sacrifice some stuff. I had to go without some stuff to get where I am. I had to keep my mouth closed when I wanted to scream. And God has brought me to where I am now. And ain't no way in the world I'm going to take all of this and just hand it to somebody who doesn't know how to handle it. You say, Pastor, I can't find nobody. That might be part of the problem. You looking too hard. If you focus on being what you want, you will attract who you are. But be something. Have your act together. And all the people said, Amen. Amen. We're standing all over this building. If you all were looking for a pastor, and I walked in, you didn't know me, I walked in, and you said to me, Brother Pastor, can you read for us Matthew 24? And I said, wait a minute, Matthew, is that in the Bible? Is that the Old Testament or the New Testament? And you say, beg your pardon? Matthew, that's in the Bible, right? Matthew? That was one of Jesus' disciplines? Is that in there? Is Matthew in there? Now, a 3-year-old, if I said to them, turn to Matthew, they say, yeah, this is a kid. Kid might not know where Matthew is. But if I'm grown, and I'm supposed to be your next pastor, you might want to have a pastor who knows how to find Matthew. Is that reasonable? If you're preparing for surgery and you overhear the surgeon right before they put you under, and the surgeon leans over and says to one of the surgical nurses, which one of these knives do I use? I'll be grabbing the IV line. Quit! Hold it! Hold it! Hold it! Something wrong here. I said, Doctor, what did you ask her? He said, well, we got all these knives in. I'm not really sure which one I'm supposed to use. And what y'all say we working on him? Is it his gallbladder? Which side is that on? Where's that at in his body? Like you don't know where. Well, what I thought I was going to do is just cut somewhere around the middle and just look around. And I'm going to pull out my phone and I'm going to Google gallbladder and I'm going to look around till I see the one that looked like the picture. And you're going to be cutting on me? That's a doctor who doesn't know his job. But you tell me you're going to marry a man and he can't find one scripture in the Bible that explains what a godly husband ought to act like. You don't even hold him to that standard. You ask him, what kind of dad are you going to be? I'm going to be the kind of dad my granddaddy was. That might not be a good thing. I don't know your granddad. You don't know anything about what the Bible expects of husbands, wives, moms, dads. How are you going to do it if you don't even know it? And then those of us who have been exposed to Christian thought or just human nature, when we don't get it, we upset. And the question is, what kind of application process did you have? What kind of references did you check? And you're entering into lifelong relationship with someone you really don't know. And then get mad when they stand up and say, I'll be back. Back from where? We grown people in this house, we tell each other where we going. I said, I'll be back. And you're asking yourself, what have I gotten myself into? I'll be back later. What is later? Thursday. I was just working through some things in my mind. And it took me a few days, but I'm back now. I'm good now. You think you can just disappear like that? Well, that's what my granddaddy did. Granddaddy was gone days at a time. Grandma always knew he was going to come back. And now you're trying to figure out how you're going to raise kids, ultimately grandchildren, because somebody didn't stop and make sure they were right and then prepare for someone else who was right. I want to pray with you. I want to pray for you. There's so much riding on us getting it right. So much riding on it. So much riding on it. So many families are struggling in so many ways because nobody sat them down and told them how to pick. Nobody taught them about self-control. And as the church, may God help us to do the job that God has called us to do. I want to pray with you. I want to pray for you. I want you to be a strong Christian. I want you to grow up in your relationship with God so that you don't make someone else's life miserable. Some people get off at 5, get home at 5:30, and sit in the driveway till 7, praying you sleep by the time they come in the door. A whole lot of people working overtime. It ain't because they need the money. They want everybody in the house to be asleep by the time they get in there. They don't want to look at none of y'all. Every head is bowed, every eye is closed. Lord, make us better. Through your word and through your spirit, make us better. Work on us. Work in us, that we may be used to change the world that is around us. Lord, touch every young man in this room. May he decide today that he wants to live for you, to make his own life better, but so that as he grows and matures, he doesn't mess up someone else's life along the way. Lord, I pray for every young lady who can hear my voice. Help her to get to know you, to grow up in you, so that she will carry herself as a vessel of honor, that she will never allow herself to be taken advantage of, that she would recognize that she is both fearfully and wonderfully made. Then, Lord, I pray for every adult, every man, every woman. Help us to get fixed so that we stop hurting other people. Help us to learn to be whole by ourselves before we connect with another one of your children. Then, Lord, I pray for married couples, some for whom the fire may be growing dim. Help them to walk in that joy, that pilot light that ever remains stable. I pray for every home that we get back to the place that we not only do church, but we love the God of the church each and every day. Help us to read your word. Help us to meditate on your word so that when we leave our houses, the residue of your presence is all over us. And the world will see your glory and desire to know you for themselves. Bless us as we leave this place. Watch over us, guide us, protect us. Hold us in the palm of your hand. Then, Lord, bless us as we give, knowing that our gifts are used for the upbuilding of your kingdom. We claim it done even now. In Jesus' name, amen. For those in the building, on the bottom of the card you were given when you came in, there's a connection card. There's a prayer request form on the other side of it. If you want to connect with this church, if you want to connect with the family of God, just fill that card out, drop it in the offering plate on your way out, and we will connect you with this local church. High five somebody in the spirit and tell them, I'm going to do better. I'm going to do better. I'm going to do better. Go with God.